Hello, hi. Welcome to this episode of Low Carb in the Leaves on a slightly chilly spring morning. I am Dr. Mary Barson from Real Life Medicine. This week, we've been talking about mood and food. I started off on Monday discussing the gut-brain barrier. Hi, Susan. Oh, and before I start, a special hello to Barry, who I know will be watching this when he gets up. Welcome, everybody. So on Monday, I started talking about the gut-brain barrier, the gut-brain axis, and the role that gut health plays in regulating our mood. I've also discussed the role that sugar and insulin regulation has in our mood. And I've discussed various nutrients that we need to get from our real food to improve our mood. And today I'm going to talk about the direct effect that food has on our brain chemistry, because it does directly affect our brain chemistry. Food lights up the reward circuitry in our brains, the dopamine pathways. We get a little warm buzz every time that we eat. And this made sense back in caveman times when our genetics was being forged through the long and slow process of evolution out in the natural world, before we had modern conveniences of freely available processed foods. So, as I mentioned before, genetically we are like our ancestors, our wild ancestors from tens of thousands of years ago. And food was hard to get, had to work for it. They had to hunt animals, they had to find their own food, they had to forage for mushrooms and nuts and fruit. And it made a lot of sense that every time they found some food and every time they ate some food, they got a nice little rewarding buzz of dopamine, and they'd be far more likely to go out and do it again. So it kind of makes sense. However, in the modern world, we're at such a mismatch between our genetics and our current food environment. And it is this mismatch is at the heart of so many chronic lifestyle illnesses. And we get a dopamine buzz from all foods. Have some nice broccoli. I like to have mine perhaps slightly sauteed with a little bit of garlic. Delicious, we get a little dopamine buzz from eating broccoli. However, we get a much higher dopamine buzz from eating what we call hyper-palatable foods, sugary foods, carb-laden foods, carbohydrate-laden foods, and processed foods. And it's one of the reasons why these processed foods are so easy to overeat. It's one of the reasons why we emotionally eat or stress eat or comfort eat. It's because these foods literally change our brain chemistry and give us a dopamine buzz, which can, in the very short term, make us feel good. Often makes us feel worse in the long term though. And the food industry is onto this. They've known for a long time that these hyper-palatable foods that are processed, that are laden with sugar and salt and fat at just the right amounts, light up our reward circuitry and are really easy to overeat, and are often foods that we could very easily eat when we're not hungry. We can engage in non-hungry eating of chips and ice cream and chocolate and even lots of fast foods. And so basically these food companies, in essence, have kind of hijacked our brain chemistry, which angers me, as it should anger you. And this has the potential to build up a terribly vicious cycle. So say the case of comfort eating. Feel a bit crap day, colleague was challenging, kids wouldn't go to bed, who knows, a bad day, and you seek solace and comfort in some hyper-palatable foods. In the moment you're kind of like, feels good, kind of stuffs down those uncomfortable feelings, but then you kind of feel worse because you've just eaten a whole block of chocolate and that was shit and it's not in line with your goals, and so emotionally you feel worse. But also these foods, these hyper-palatable processed foods, actually, for all the reasons I mentioned in the previous days, actually make your brain more unhealthy at a biochemical level. They are bad for your body and bad for your brain and bad for your gut and bad for your sugar regulation, bad for your metabolism, bad for your hormones, and this whole vicious cycle where you feel much worse, and it can actually set you up for even worse mental health. So it's not a good cycle to get stuck in. Emotional eating is a complex issue. In our 12-week program, we spend 3 weeks on emotional eating and talking about what it is and how to break free of it. But certainly getting these processed hyper-palatable foods out of your house and out of your life is a really important first step. These foods are everywhere. They flood the entire centre of our stores and supermarkets. Anything that comes in a packet or box is quite possibly one of these hyper-palatable, chemically designed foods that hijacks our reward system in our brains. And the only way to really kind of break free from this cycle is to not buy them. Shop around the perimeter of the supermarket. Eat meat, eggs, fish, seafood, nuts, seeds, veggies, fruit, and, if you're not going low carb, and eat real food. And then you will get a lovely little dopamine buzz from the food that you eat, but it will be small and manageable and more in line with what we were evolved to deal with. So that's it from me today. Hyper-palatable foods hijack our brain chemistry in a really, really unhelpful way. Enjoy eating your real food, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.